Are we live now?
We are now live.
All right, let's go.
Hey guys, welcome to September's edition of our Ask Me Anything with ASCLS. We have the famous Kyle Writing and the artist and Miss Dana Baker with us tonight. I'm going to let them introduce themselves to you, and we will get started with the questions after that.
Dana, ladies first, so please go right ahead.
Why, thank you, sir. Good evening, everybody. I am Dana, formerly Bostic, now Baker. I currently work as assistant professor at the University of Kansas Medical Center in the Department of Clinical Laboratory Sciences, which is actually housed within the School of Health Professions. I've lived in Kansas City now. I'm going into my 4th year. That is me in a nutshell. I've been a laboratory professional now, probably going into about 18 years. But of course, transitioned into various roles throughout my career, including, of course, obviously education. So I look forward to speaking with you all this evening. I'll switch it back to Kyle.
Thanks, Dana. Hey, everyone, I'm Kyle Writing. I am an assistant professor at the University of Central Florida. I teach within our medical laboratory science program, which is a part of our bigger school that focuses on biomedical sciences. For me, doing this evening is kind of like coming home in its own unique way. I'm not sure how many moons have passed, but I was at one time the developing forum chair and the ascending forum chair. So this is fun to see how far both groups have come. I've been practicing now for 14 years. So looking forward to having this discussion.
Thanks, guys. So basically how this works, if this is your first Ask Me Anything, we just open up the floor to any questions. So just unmute yourself, or if you feel more comfortable, drop it in the chat box and I'll read it off. I know Mr. Meyer had some questions, so I don't know if he wants to ask them out loud.
Hello, I could ask them out loud.
Hi.
My first question was, what are the minimum degree requirements to getting in a position where either of you are at? Like a MLS educator is how I stated it originally.
Sure. So Dana, do you mind if I jump on this real quick?
No, go right ahead.
Awesome. So it all depends on what you want to do in education. Jonathan, it's when I started, I was an adjunct helping with a laboratory course. I was kind of a secondary instructor, and to be honest, I had only had my bachelor's degree in certification at that point. And so it was a great opportunity for me to use my skills, learn under someone who had been teaching for a while, and figure out if education was the right path for me. Now, to get to your question more directly, what you will need is at minimum a master's degree for a full-time position. I am a strong believer that the master's credential makes the best darn educators in the world, and I say that as someone with a PhD. There's opportunities in master's curriculums to really hone that teaching ability that sometimes the research avenues of the PhD, depending on the program you go to, may neglect. But for maximum flexibility, the PhD gives you opportunities and opens doors unlike any other degree that's out there.
Right. And so as far as my journey, it's a little different. I actually completed my MBA while I was still working in the lab with a goal of going into lab leadership. That's what I was thinking about at the time. And when I completed my MBA, I actually did go into lab leadership, but found that I was really more passionate about training and teaching. That was really my wheelhouse, I would say, which is a component of leadership, of course, but I really wanted to go at it full-fledged. So my first position in education was as a clinical coordinator. I did all the clinical placements for our CLS program students, but then also transitioned into teaching. And what allowed that transition to take place was already possessing an MBA. So that was a minimum requirement for that undergraduate program and also for the one that I currently work for. There are some, I will say MLT programs, for instance, or there may be some MLS programs that may accept a bachelor's, but maybe have the goal or the agreement that you will pursue a graduate degree at some point. Because really, if you look at accreditation requirements, it's the focus on the terminal degree. And so looking at the terminal degree for our profession is really what we have to look at in terms of, job requirements. But some, as in at KU, we do tend, in our job descriptions anyway, prefer a graduate degree.
And you sparked something in my head when you were mentioning that, Dana. The other thing to keep in mind, Jonathan, is field. Don't the discipline that you choose to get the graduate degree in. Dana mentioned she has a master's degree in business administration. I have one that's focused on clinical epidemiology. There's a lot of tie-ins in terms of this field with potential graduate degrees. So don't feel that you need to necessarily get your graduate degree in MLS or public health or MBA. There's no advantage of one over the other. Just find something you're passionate about in graduate school and get that degree if this is the field you're really interested in.
Right. I absolutely agree with that, because even to that point, we're going to keep on going to that point. I do also have my master's degree in healthcare simulation. And so that was a niche for me, especially in my transition into KU, because they were specifically looking for, and of course, that's like looking for a unicorn, an MLS who has their, MLS ASCP certification, but also experience in healthcare simulation and interprofessional education. That is a hard combination to find. And so I figured out that niche, went for it, and that worked out in my favor. So absolutely, I agree with what Kyle just stated. Don't feel like you're limited to what master's degree you pursue. Pursue what you love, and it will definitely complement whatever you strive to do in your future education role.
And you're a unicorn even before that, but damn, you are.
I was a sparkly unicorn.
Thank you so much, guys. We have a question from the chat. Ms. Kimberly Walker asks, I'm a new program director at an MLT program. Any advice for juggling administrative duties with teaching?
The first thing that came to my mind, because I've been there before, I was a program director of an MLT program. And it was one where I was the only full-time faculty assigned to that program. I had adjuncts that would pick up, so I can't say I was like by myself, but like the ship was really being steered by me, which, if you know me, is a scary thing. But I think the best advice I can give you is don't allow yourself to get so consumed with the administrative work that you forget the passion you find in teaching, because that passion and that connection that you'll build with the students will make you an all-around better educator. And when you're an all-around better educator, you can come to the table as a program director and administrator much more effectively than you probably could without keeping that passion alive. Just like any position, it's not easy to climb the ranks, but you don't always necessarily need that passion to climb the ranks if you know how to play the game. In higher ed, you will burn yourself out if you don't keep that love for that classroom there. And sometimes, and this may not, be an administrator's favorite thing to hear, skip over that email the admin sent you for the report that's due tomorrow or in 2 hours, and focus on how you can help your students, because you'll feel rejuvenated doing that.
That's good. I think the only piece of advice that I would add, and that's really from colleague to colleague, given that I haven't worked in a program director capacity, but just referring back to my leadership experience in the lab, would be to be your own advocate. I find that as laboratory professionals, we don't voice when we're feeling overburdened or overwhelmed, or it's too much on our plate. And just voicing that to leadership that, hey, this is too much. If you expect me to be an effective leader, but also an effective educator, these are the resources that I will need. And it's not only a benefit to you, but more so a benefit to your learners. And so I've noticed that over the years, where we tend to shy away from speaking up for ourselves because we don't want to rock the boat per se. I've heard some blame it on being introverted, or I'd say tying it to that. But really, if people see you doing it all and they think you got it covered, they're not going to lend a hand or offer resources or support or anything to that degree. So I'd really say if you're finding a hard time striving that balance, especially in the way that Kyle just so eloquently put it, be your advocate, bring that to leadership, I won't say demand, but strongly suggest that, these resources be pulled in to better support you, your program, and your learners.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree with that more, Dana. When I was a program director, the program, this was like trial by fire. My first year as a program director, new program, and I had to go through the institution's program review process. And for those that don't know what that is, every educational program out there has to like make a book that reviews itself. It feels like a book. It's not really War and Peace. It just feels like it. And a committee of your colleagues at the institution reviews it. And a lot of folks can just use that process as a check mark. But like Dana said, I use that as an advocacy piece in that role. I used that as a chance to demonstrate that I needed an additional faculty member and as a full-timer, and I was able to get that because of it. And it's all about just being your own advocate. We're awesome data collectors, so use that data to your advantage and don't get that sense of, well, this just makes sense. Well, yeah, because you're logical, you're a lab professional, of course this makes sense. But to folks that don't have that awesome background that we have, maybe they don't see that. So it's just like Dana said, keeping up with being your own advocate. God, I love that because that is important.
Thank you so much. We have another question in the chat from Jasmine Kendrick. I'm planning on pursuing an MPH degree, but I'm not sure which concentration to choose between epidemiology and policy and health practice. For now, I love being a bench tech, so policy and health practice sounds more practical, but what kind of opportunities are available for the epidemiology track?
I guess I'll take this with my public
Yeah.
health background. So you have to ask yourself so public health has three essential functions to it. One is assurance, assuring health of your communities. One is data surveillance, where you're being a detective and seeing what data is out there. And one is policy development, where you take those first two and you start to craft new policies to fix any issues that are happening. So the question you have to ask yourself is, do you want to be someone that is really data focused in their position and is using that data focus to bring in numbers or qualitative data that can fuel action someday? Or do you want to still be able to use those numbers, because policy and health practice professionals, our community health professionals, they still use numbers, don't get it twisted. But they are going to look at that and figure out, how do I fit this data into the puzzle that I'm trying to put together for overall community health right now? I can tell you my personal journey was choosing clinical epidemiology because I was able to kind of pick up a knack with patient safety on that front, and I loved the kind of connection with it. But I sometimes also wish I did that community health policy track, because I love that puzzle piece and that advocacy and that government affairs aspect. So it's really about reflective practice. There's jobs in both fields, but ask yourself what you want to be and let that path kind of guide you from there. Never ask what jobs are out there. Ask yourself what you want to be, and then use that degree and leverage that degree to become what you see yourself achieving in life. So, because what you want to be may not be a job posting right now.
True. And also, don't feel like you only have to do one degree. You could do the MPH in epidemiology and then pursue your doctoral degree in policy. I have a colleague that's doing that right now, actually. So she approached it as a layer. se. So,
and that's a great way of looking at it. It is, and that, man, that's going to give an awesome background for her over time. So,
yeah.
I hope that helps, Jasmine. I know it was kind of non-specific. You were looking for opportunities, but you know, in terms of the policy and health practice, there's lots of non-governmental agencies, governmental agencies you can work for. Same with EPI, and EPI, you could probably have a little bit of an easier time finding clinical positions, maybe as infection preventionists. That's not to say folks in policy and health couldn't, but those are just kind of some of the things that come to mind. So Dana, I'm going to ask you a question, Dana, if that's okay, Jessica. Do you mind if I hijack this?
For sure.
Awesome.
Always does this.
What is it about being an educator that you love?
I love the fact that I get the ability to give back. I think that's really what it is. I feel like I was given a chance or an opportunity as a student. I wasn't necessarily the best or most compliant student, I would say. My professors really had to push me hard and I see that now as they saw what was in me or what I was capable of doing. But being a typical 20-something-year-old college student, you know, my head was all over the place. But once I really got focused and committed to the task at hand, you know, that was a huge part in me being able to be as successful professionally as I am now. And so just having that ability to give back and pour that back into future generations of medical laboratory scientists, I think that's really cool. And it's really neat when they come back and say, you know, hey, I'm doing this now, or hey, remember that, you know, day I had a horrible, you know, like burst in tears in the lab, and you know, you really talked me through it. I really was going to quit the program that day, but you know, you helped me out. Just, you know, getting that feedback pushes me, I'll say, even more so.
I was just curious. I always love to ask why people love being in education.
Why do you love being in education?
Pretty much the same reason, in all honesty. I came from a pretty, and if there's other questions that come through, I won't take long on this one, I promise. But I came from a really impoverished area. Like, it wasn't, you know, like horrible. I had a good upbringing, but it was a city environment. You know, right across the street from the project, saw just kind of what happened to all the people in the world around me. And it wasn't always the best outcomes at times. And I didn't know if I was going to do much with my life. And I had some faculty at UMass, Dartmouth, that really sat back and supported me. And again, like you said, made me see things in myself that I didn't necessarily know was there, because I had always been just kind of the quiet. Everyone does not realize this is true, but I was really a quiet, shy kid. So they gave me confidence. I know they gave me confidence. So I love being able to see that professional growth in people too, and give back.
Right. It's kind of like the talk that we had last night from Tawana Wilson, where she talked about unleashing that inner leader, but being, you know, a part of unleashing that inner, not just laboratory scientists, but just unleashing who, you know, people are destined or meant to be, or just being a part of that process. I think it's just really neat.
Absolutely, I agree. And someone asked a question. So Jessica, I'll give the floor back to you. I'll stop making it the Kyle Writing show.
Okay, we have another one in the chat. I think just one. Stephanie McCormick asks, I am in an MLS program and will graduate in December. I am passionate about teaching and love having students come through my lab during clinicals. I have been researching master's degrees and have found two programs that I'm interested in, but I'm not sure which one would be more beneficial. The first one is an MS in curriculum and instruction. The second is an MEd in instructional design. Which one, in your opinion, would be a better path?
I can't say which one would be a better path per se. It really depends on, so this, I'll kind of go back to my experience and hopefully you'll be able to pull something from that. So when I was looking at master's degrees, I was looking at similar programs, especially given that already had an MBA. So when I was pursuing my second one, the scientist in me wanted something that had MS in it. That was part of the reason why I did healthcare simulation. But that was my thing. But that's not necessary at all. So don't feel like one necessarily outweighs the other. My advice would be looking at the curriculum itself, looking at the courses, seeing if those courses really speak to you. Because currently I am pursuing my EDD in curriculum and instruction, and I'm in my third year now. But looking at that, trying to choose between programs, because there was PhD versus EDD, curriculum and instruction either way. I looked at the actual curriculum itself, and I looked at the courses, and I went with what spoke to me most, as far as, yes, that's exactly what I want to do, or that's exactly what speaks to me. So I won't say one outweighs the other necessarily. I would say go with the program that speaks to you the most course wise. Look at the courses. Also look at, does this program fit your lifestyle? Does it fit, will it be online? Will it be face-to-face? Will it be a hybrid? I think those additional pieces are really important as well when you're selecting a program. So really either way, you can't go wrong, but I would say just go to the one that speaks to you the most when you research those other pieces with it.
I absolutely agree. I think both looking at the curriculum and also, Stephanie, reach out to the program directors and faculty at those programs and let them know that you're interested, what your background is, what your goals are. I think as faculty, we're used to getting those emails and can give you a good sense of how the program could work with you to fit your needs and see if it's a good choice for you. I don't think, like Dana said, you could go wrong with either one in this instance. And I think it's wonderful that you're so engaged and interested in teaching at such an early stage in your career. I commend you for that. I think that's excellent.
And I'm sure Kyle would agree that we have colleagues that have either one of those. So it really didn't change as far as their, I guess, their hireability, I would say, as a faculty member.
Yeah.
So I didn't really see that impacting.
Yeah, and let's be honest, the state of our workforce in this clinical laboratory industry is not as strong as it could be. We have a shortage, and it's getting worse as time goes on right now. And faculty, it's the same situation for this profession. So we need people. And so if you come in with either an MS in curriculum and instruction and an ME or an MED in instructional design, I'll be honest, I would gobble you up if I was on a search committee and it was the right position for you, because those are really great degrees to hold. Dana also said something about make sure it fits your lifestyle. I completely agree with that. I did all of my coursework online for my PhD. I had to go to in-person residencies and then do all my research in person, but it really fit my life. I was sort of, by some people, dissuaded from that option, saying it was less than a PhD. I then got to go to a national conference. It was not an ASCLS conference, it was another one. And I actually saw posters of research from people from my program and people from other programs. And I was really proud of the quality I was seeing from this less than program, because it was online, and what could you possibly learn in an online environment? So we're going back like 7, 8 years now, but whenever someone questions the integrity of a degree, I just have to giggle, because what are their credentials to actually evaluate what your experience was through that curriculum? And don't allow them to impose a sense of inferiority upon yourself, when in fact you're awesome, you did what you needed for your career, and you achieved a level of mastery that a very small proportion of individuals in this world achieve. So you should be patting yourself on the back, not feeling diminished by the fact that you chose something to elevate yourself.
I think that's just an interesting plot twist now that most education is taking place online now, regardless,
I
Ivy
love
League or whatnot.
It's like return. It's like
Ah.
I just use Return of the Jedi in a way because it's like you thought online ed was no good. Well, guess what? We're proving you wrong.
Like, it's
So
hard work.
it's hard work, and
Yeah.
yeah, I think anyone that says there's concerns about integrity, I always question why they believe that and what their instructional practices are to believe that students are naturally going to be cheaters. So that always bothers me. There's always people that don't follow the rules, but I don't really want to believe all of my students are cheaters until I've been proven otherwise.
Did that help, Stephanie? I hope so.
We really just have time for one more question. I'm going to be a total jerk and ask it because I'm me. So I don't have a lot of interest in going into education from your standpoint, but I'm very interested in becoming a clinical instructor. What are the things that you guys would ask from a clinical instructor? You know, what would make me a valuable clinical instructor to you as educators in the program?
Ask me what the students need when they're with you, and don't assume that you know because of what you did with your program. I think every program's designed differently, and sometimes some programs require a more rigorous clinical experience because there's less on-campus preparation, and sometimes there's a lot of on-campus preparation, and so there's more of the workflow and the social environment of a professional social environment of working in the lab that needs to be sought after during that rotation. So asking the faculty at that program what they need from you is really awesome and a great way of approaching it.
Yeah, I would agree. Communication would be my biggest thing. Being open to feedback, but also providing it. I really see that as a real opportunity to build a relationship between faculty and clinical instructors, because I know it's a quote that we keep hearing all over the place, but we are all in this together. But it's very true, especially when we both want the same things. We want positive outcomes for our learners. So what can we do collaboratively to ensure the best experience for them? So really communication, a sincere desire or want to teach and educate and train. You could tell those that want to train versus those who have no interest in it whatsoever. The ones that always thrilled me the most would be the ones that would have like their own quizzes developed and whatnot. Like, oh yeah, I quiz them every week. Like they have a curriculum for every week that they have that learner, and it's broken down to a science, literally. And so that to me was always really impressive too, as far as, what is your approach? So I just feel like that's just, those are the key things that I would look for.
Yeah, and if you can also project, in your case, Jessica, how much you appreciate and love this profession, I think we really need that. I think, unfortunately, sometimes there are individuals that have made certain choices in their professional career and have not made choices that are advantageous to their own growth and their own leadership potential, as was discussed last night in that wonderful webinar. So they can project a negative attitude on the student. So when they see someone like you that's passionate about this profession and maintains a level of respect for it and for them with their choices, I really think that changes the culture of an entire laboratory and makes a huge impact on that student and your colleagues. They will get a little jealous and they'll want to become the best educator and compete with you, and healthy competition is always a good thing.
Thank you guys so much. Unfortunately, I feel like everyone has so many more questions. It's been such a great Ask Me Anything session. Unfortunately, we are out of time. I'm sure that if you guys found them on the ASCLS website and emailed them your additional questions, that these two would be willing to engage in that further conversation.
And I'm putting my email in the chat, actually, so everyone can
I
have
the same
my
thing.
So that way, if you ever have any questions, or if you're ever looking for a job in Central Florida, shoot me a message and I can help you navigate that process.
You can also find those guys on Twitter, so they're very active on Twitter.
Very
Aaron's much better at it than I am, but yes, I am. We are both there.
Well, thank you guys again so much. If I invite anyone who would like to stick around for the Ascending Professional Forum meeting to do so. Otherwise, have a wonderful, wonderful evening.
Thank you all.
And keep being rock stars, each and every one of you. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.